This is episode 9 of the SOC Level 2 pathway of TryHackMe, and in this episode we're going to be going through the Advanced ELK module, and we're going through the Logstash data processing unit. But first, this is Hackaholics Anonymous, the premier YouTube community for security professionals and hackers. When I started this journey, there were a lot of tools, there were a lot of resources and information that I didn't have. And at first, I started this channel as a way to collect ideas, tactics, and strategies for my own future reference. And then a community, which is you, gathered around it. And before I knew it, there were dozens of people, and then hundreds of people, and then all of a sudden, thousands of people. And as the time went by, through the comments and really a lot of self-reflection, I started to wonder how I could actually add more value to the community. Therefore, the idea for Hackaholics Anonymous popped into my head, and I very much love that name. A community of insiders who would be able to show their support and in exchange get some of my best value and a lot of my creations and the things that I really have been working a lot on that I want to give to you guys. So these are things like early access, merchandise discounts, members only videos, Python scripts that I've developed, both for cybersecurity administration, for pen testing, for system administration, a lot of cheat sheets, manuals, live trainings, personal coaching, and much, much more. And the intention behind this whole thing is, number one, to help you advance your knowledge and skills at a rapid pace, so much quicker than what you're getting right now. Then to give you access to tools and resources that you can take anywhere and repurpose as needed. So for example, the Python scripts, you can use them for your own computers, you can use them for any jobs that you go to, and any contracting jobs that you get, anything that you really can find a purpose for, you can use all of those resources for that free of charge for as much as you want. And next, I want to build a team of advanced hackers to combine forces with them so that we can go after large bug bounties. And bug bounties are literally things that you can do for companies to find bugs in their systems or to find vulnerabilities, and they'll pay you for that. For example, $1 million Apple bounty, and this is actually a very real thing, where you can get paid $1 million from Apple if you're able to attack certain parts of their systems and accomplish such bug bounties. So it would be really cool to be able to combine forces with people, and then we can go after it and then pool the bounties, pull the money out, as long as obviously people contribute and we actually do something to get those results. And finally, I really want to be able to create content full-time. As this journey has progressed for me, there's been a very big passion that has developed for teaching and for building this community, and it would be amazing to be able to do that full-time and not have to worry about things like paying bills and worrying about the necessities of life. And if that actually is happening or gets to happen, it would literally be a dream coming true for me. So that's kind of like the extra perk at the end of all this, that I think it would be amazing if that could actually happen. I have no idea if it'll happen or not, but it's an intention that I'm putting out into the universe, and if it does happen, it would be freaking amazing. Now here's how the perks were actually selected and how I developed the perks for our membership community. First, I did a lot of recon, very similar to what we do when we do pen testing and when we do vulnerability analysis. I did reconnaissance on all the channels that are in this genre and anything similar to this genre to see what those channels were offering to their paid members. And believe it or not, there are literally, and I underline that for a reason, there are literally channels that charge $50 a month for being a great supporter, quote unquote. That's basically all they're offering in exchange is, hey, kudos to you, thank you for being a supporter, thanks for giving us $50 a month. And that's basically it. And people contribute, and people actually do contribute those $50 a month because they want to support that channel. But there's no perks, no exchange happening of value. I guess there is exchange because the channel is up and they're creating content, but that's basically it. And the person is supporting the channel by offering them whatever they're offering per month. So there are no other extra perks that are attached to somebody becoming a paid member. And that feels, to me, it feels a little bit unfair. So even on the lowest tier of the Hackaholics Anonymous perks, you'll at least get something in return for being a supporter, for actually adding value to our community by using your dollars and cents. So at the very least, we'll give you something in return for that. Now, this is tier 1. Tier 1 is the cyber supporter, and you get early access to new videos. So 24-hour early access to all the content that comes in, including the videos and tutorials. You get priority reply to comments, and you get custom emojis and badges to distinguish you from the rest of our community. And I will give you a shout out in whatever video comes out. As long as I know that there's a new supporter that comes in, I'm going to make a list of all of those people, and I'm going to give you a shout out just to give you a little bit of extra notoriety, give you some PR and boost if you're trying to build your channel out, and to just make sure that you get the recognition that you deserve. And then moving on to tier 2, which is going to be the cyber agent. And so you get everything from cyber supporter. So all of the perks actually stack on top of each other, and you get everything from the previous tiers as well. So you get everything from cyber supporter. The early access to videos bumps up to 48 hours. So it goes from 24 hours to 48 hours. There's member only videos that are attached to this, and that includes the bug bounties, and it includes the cheat sheets and the manuals. And this is a monthly exclusive content drop that will just include all the bug bounty missions that we're going to be working on, the progress with those missions, the downloadable cheat sheets and or manuals that would either be attached to those missions or just separate cheat sheets and manuals that I've been stacking as I've been going through my own cybersecurity journey. And then we have the monthly system administration Python automation. So this is a little bit of a beginner level series of Python automations, but they are very heavily stacked. So you kind of do need to know a little bit about Python, but even if you don't, there are going to be source codes, there's going to be documentation that's going to be included, and there's going to be the videos that explain everything and how to customize these Python automations so that you can use them for any system administration job. So for example, provisioning a bunch of new users on Active Directory, where you don't have to do it manually, and you can just run the script and make sure, as long as you have a document that's connected that has all their usernames and passwords, it literally just runs and creates everything for you, and it just makes your life super easy. So it's things like that. And there's going to be a monthly Python drop that will include these scripts that have all the source code, everything that you would need to actually run it, and it goes for Windows and Mac OS. And then there's the documentation, and then of course there's the videos that tag along with that. And then finally for this, we have the members only Discord chat, and this is something that's been really big, and I've been getting a lot of comments about this. So there's going to be weekly chats that are going to happen where I'll be present, we'll be live, we'll be going back and forth in the chat, and then you can just ask me anything that you want on Discord. We can have any kind of conversation, and we'll be doing this weekly for our cyber agents. The next tier is going to be the Cyber Guardian, and of course this stacks everything from Cyber Agent as well as Cyber Supporter. So you get all the Python scripts from Cyber Agent, you get all the perks from Cyber Agent as well as Cyber Supporter. So it brings all of that stuff, as well as now you get an early access bump up to 72 hours. So the early access to all the content goes up to 72 hours, basically 3 days. And then you now get members only live streams with Q&A. So we go out of the Discord chat and we actually go into a video environment. We'll do a live stream. We'll do a presentation on a specific topic. It could be the bug bounty. It could be really anything. And then on top of that, we'll have a session for Q&A where you can just ask all of your questions, AMA, which is also Ask Me Anything. And we'll just go through whatever you need, talk about anything that you want. You can ask me anything about anything, and that'll be another perk. And then we also have the monthly cybersecurity administration automation. So this is going from system administration, and now it's going into SciSec administration. So these are things that are now on the blue team side of things, the log analysis side of things, all of the activities that a cybersecurity admin is doing repetitively, that there's going to be a Python automation created, ready to go out of the box. And it includes obviously the source code, the documentation, and a video that goes into it. And this is now graduating from a beginner level code to an intermediate level code. And again, this, you could use this for anything. You could use it for yourself, you could use it for the jobs that you go on. And I'm actually really proud of these things. Like the automations is a very big deal for me, because I know that it helps so much in my own life that I was like, okay, you know what, I feel like this would actually be very useful if we started giving it to all of our members. So we already had the sysadmin Python automations, and now we have the monthly cybersecurity administrator Python automations that are included as well. And finally, we have the merchandise discounts that come in at Cyber Guardian, which is 10% discount on all the merchandise in the Hackaholics Anonymous store. And the store is going to be pretty badass too. So I'm really excited about all the merch that's about to drop as well. So really excited about all of these things that are happening. And honestly, I just hope that you guys enjoy it as much as I am. And last but definitely not least is going to be our Cyber Master tier, which is everything from Cyber Guardian, everything from Cyber Agent, Cyber Supporter, all of those things. And this stacks on top of all of those things. And the early access now bumps up to a week instead of 72 hours. You get a week advanced early access to all of the content. There's going to be members only live streams with Q&A, where this is a weekly exclusive. So previously it was a monthly exclusive live stream where it was happening for the Cyber Guardians, but this is going to be a weekly exclusive live stream where you can literally ask me anything that you want about anything. And because of that tier being the higher of all of the tiers, I do expect that these communities or these members are going to be a little bit less in numbers, so it'll be much more intimate live streams, and we'll get a chance to really have deep conversations about a lot of the specific topics, and we can go really deep into whatever conversation or whatever topic that you want to have. So this is one of the reasons why it's tiered as high as it is. And of course we have the monthly pen testing Python automations. And so the pen testing side of things is now going into offensive security. So cybersecurity admin was the defensive, they were on the blue team, and the pen tester is now on the red team. This is the offensive security side of automations, and these are advanced automations. So this is things like web vulnerability assessments, these are port scanners. There are a lot of great advanced Python automations that actually help with penetration testing and ethical hacking. And of course you get the source code, you get the documentations, you get the videos that accompanies it, and this is kind of my pride and joy. The pen testing stuff, the pen testing Python stuff is absolute. I'm so happy that these things work the way that they do. And of course all of these work for Windows as well as Mac OS. There's going to be a folder where you get access to all the Windows as well as all the Mac OS. So in case Mac OS and Linux, because those two are very similar languages. So in case, you know, the computer at work is Windows and the computer at home is Linux for whatever reason, you get access to both versions of the source code so that you can do exactly what the intended script wants to do on all types of machines. And finally, we get merchandise discounts that go up to 20% on everything that comes in the Hackaholics Anonymous store, and that is the Cyber Master tier. Which brings us to our call to action. I know I threw a lot at you, and ultimately this is coming to a very wrapping point because I didn't want this video to be very long because it's going to be integrated with all of our other content and things like that. So if you want to show appreciation for this channel and everything that constantly comes out, and if you want to show appreciation to me, if you want to excel your learning and your career, if you want to get specialized content, if you want to get badass automations, and if you want to team up for bug bounties and make real money, then I very much encourage you to join the Hackaholics Anonymous community today. This is something that I'm very, very excited about, and I worked very hard on establishing it and building the automations and making sure that there is real value that's being exchanged for it. And I really don't care what level you come in, because even from the supporter to the Cyber Master, I really truly appreciate every single person that becomes a member of our community, and I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to make sure that this community is very valuable for you and you get some serious perks out of it. And you'll see as you come on, everything from the cheat sheets to the manuals to the specialized videos to the automations to the bug bounty programs and all the stuff that we're going to be doing together. You will see that it's going to be an amazing membership community to be a part of. And my goal, as I said from the very beginning of this whole thing, my goal is to make this the premier community for all of the security professionals, hackers, and everybody who just wants to be in cybersecurity. That's all genuinely the goal for this. So I very much look forward to seeing you in our membership program. If you can make it, that would be amazing. If not, I very much encourage that you subscribe and like and turn on notification bell, drop a comment, all that stuff, just to help us grow this community and make this channel even better than it actually is. And if no one else loves you, Hank loves you. And love, peace, and chicken grease. And I look forward in seeing you in the community. I look forward in seeing you in the member community. And of course, I will see you in the next video. Later. To get more videos like this one, or to find the old videos that we've done on the Elastic Stack and Kibana and all that stuff, I encourage you to discover and browse through the channel. And of course, like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you can get notified the next time that a video comes out. and drop a comment if you have any questions or if anything comes up, or if you just want to say hi, say thanks, whatever it is. Hit us up in the comment section, and we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to have you as a part of the community. Now, that being said, without further ado, let's jump into the introduction of the Logstash data processing room. Okay, so Logstash is actually an open source data processing engine. It comes as a part of Elasticsearch, which is a suite of tools, and Logstash specifically lets you collect, enrich, transform data from different sources, and it gets combined with Kibana and even Elasticsearch to make the full complete Elastic suite, the ELK suite. And it's a very popular open source SIM, security information and event management system. So it allows for data processing, visualization, all the good stuff that is done with SIMs. In this room, we're going to go through Logstash in depth. We've done some intro videos on it, and you can find those on the channel. But we're going to be looking at it at an in-depth perspective, and how data from different sources can be ingested, parsed, normalized, and sent to various choice outputs. And this is, just a basic description of what's going to be happening. The learning objective here is getting the overview of ELK stack out of the way, installing and configuring ELK stack, exploring various input filters, and of course output plugins for Logstash, and how to use the Grok plugin, not to be confused with Gronk from X, the Grok plugin to parse and normalize unstructured data. And these are all of the learning objectives. The prerequisites are the investigating with ELK stack and the Itsy Bitsy rooms, which I've already done. So there's actually videos on this, so you can just search for investigating with ELK 101, and then you can also search for Itsy Bitsy, and you'll see that exercise as well. Itsy Bitsy was more of an exercise, a practical example of what we did, and then the other portions of it was the introduction to the whole thing. So I just started the machine. We actually had to use this machine, the attack box that we need for this, as well as the virtual machine that was assigned to us. So all of that stuff has been established and ready to go. So let's jump into the next task, our official first task. So since task number 2 was literally just, start the machines and get all that going, and it tells us where to access our directory for Elasticsearch and Logstash, all that stuff, we're just going to jump into the official task, like the first task, which is the Elasticsearch installation and configuration process here. Elasticsearch is an open source, again, distributed search and analytics engine that allows us to store, search, and analyze large volumes of data in real time. And it's built on top of the Apache Lucene server, or processing, I would say, and provides a scalable solution for full text search, structured querying, and data analysis. We're going to be using Elasticsearch to store data after being filtered and normalized by Logstash, and then we're going to go into Logstash a little bit later on in this video. So we need to know how to install and configure Elasticsearch, obviously. So this is like one of those things that in the first introduction video that we went through, they just kind of had it everything installed for us, and everything was ready to go. And this is how you learn from the very beginning to get it installed, to get everything configured, so that you can actually do the rest of the stuff. Because once it's installed and configured, everything is, it has a graphic user interface. It's very visual. It's relatively easy to navigate once everything's been installed and configured. And the hard part, especially when you go into cybersecurity as a job and you become a security analyst, the hard part really is the setting up and the configuration when they have a lot of computers and they have different locations and all those things, and you have to set all this stuff up so that you can view the logs and view the events that are happening. So that is what we're going to be actually doing right now. So I'm going to open this up in a separate window so I can drag it off screen and kind of go through the exercises and all the questions that come with it, and that way we can just use our full screen mode so that we can really navigate this whole thing pretty easily. So I'm going to get that ready, and that's all ready to go. So we're going to actually go into our full screen mode here. Okay, cool. So to be able to access our Elasticsearch, all that stuff, we need to first SSH into the machine that we're going into, which is going to be at the analyst at 10.10.195.147. That's going to be the location. And we need to put in the password analyst THM. It doesn't show you when you put in your password. You should already know how to SSH into something by now. And so here we are. So we are now officially in our machine. And so I'm going to run a list command real quick. And so if we go into home, we should be able to see a tools. And then if we go into tools, we should be able to see Elasticsearch. There we go. Perfect. So we are here officially. And once we are actually inside of, I got to go into Elasticsearch, and in here there should be a DEB file, a deb file. So to be able to do this, we need to depackage it basically, and we need to do it as a root user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do sudo su switch user, and it says enter the password for analyst, which was analyst THM, and there we go. So now I'm a root user. And being a root user, now I can run dpackage Elasticsearch. And oops, I need to do that with a DEB at the end of it. And there we go. So that's going to run. Should be pretty quick, I think. And then once that is done, we're going to get some data for ourselves. So for example, our password and the location of resetting the password and the Kibana instance and all the different information that we need. So I'm going to show you that while this actually loads. So we're going to go right here, and this is what that looks like basically. So once it's finished, these are the various pieces of information that are going to come on the screen for us. And to be able to break that down, let me see if it gives us a full breakdown of the 1, 2, 3s here. It does not give us a full breakdown of the 1, 2, 3s. So it just tells us basically what we have in these locations. So it says security configuration is going to be displayed, including the default password, which is number 1. This is note this down because it's going to be used later. And then we're going to have the installation complete. You can reset the password over here. You can generate an enrollment token for Kibana instances with this location right here, and an enrollment token for Elastic's nodes with that, which we're probably going to run into later. And if it all goes well, it's all going to be installed, and then the following commands are going to be used to make the service persistent so that it gets started whenever the server restarts. And now that you have it, you can check the status to see if it's installed and all these things, and we're going to run through all of these together right now. So I just want to wait and make sure that it's actually completely installed correctly, and once that's done, we'll run through everything else. Okay, so there are actually a series of commands that I think I may have missed right here. So it says this is not starting on installation. Please execute the following statements to configure Elasticsearch service to start automatically using systemd. So this is the daemon reload, and then this is the enable Elastic service, and then from here I can start the Elastic service. So definitely missed those things. So we're gonna do that real quick. So daemon reload, and then we're gonna do systemctl enable Elasticsearch service, and then we're gonna do systemctl start Elasticsearch service. And at this point, or after this is done, I think when I run that status check and everything else, it should not fail to determine the health of this thing. It should actually show active, so on and so forth. So I'm going to give this as much time as it needs to complete, and then we'll check on the rest of the stuff. Okay, perfect. That was actually relatively quick. I think it was maybe about 30 seconds, 20 seconds. Okay, so since I have now done that, let's see if we can check the status of this one more time, and hopefully it'll show active. Yeah, there we go. So system status Elasticsearch, there we go. So service Elasticsearch is active, it's running, and we have these groups that are created and all this different kind of stuff. So it seems to be running and all good. And if that's the case, I wonder, what do I need to do to scroll down to get out of this? Maybe we just run a command C. So it seems that it's active. So now maybe we can try to do the reset password situation real quick. Okay, cool. That command actually works. So this tool will reset the password of the Elastic user to an auto-generator value. The password will be printed in the console. Please confirm that you want to continue. I see. So it doesn't reset it to anything that we choose. It literally resets it completely for something else. So I'm gonna copy this one now because the last one is no longer valuable. So we're gonna run that. Very good. And all right, so we're now officially done with the reset of this thing, and we have checked that the service is enabled. So now we got to go through some configurations and figure out what is going on with all of that. And in order to do that, we're going to have to go into the etc Elasticsearch folder, and inside of this we have several files. And as you can see, most of these are YAML files. YML stands for YAML. And then we have a key store. We have a couple other directories, including a certification or a certificates directory, users, roles, all that different kind of stuff. So let's read through that real quick and see what these things actually are. So Elasticsearch YAML is the main configuration file for Elasticsearch. It contains various settings that determine the behavior of Elasticsearch, such as network configuration, cluster settings, node settings, and paths for data storage and logging. Modifying this will allow us to customize the Elasticsearch according to the specific requirements. Then we have JVM options that contains the Java virtual machine configuration for Elasticsearch. It allows you to specify parameters related to memory allocation, garbage collection, and other JVM options. Adjusting these is crucial for optimizing Elasticsearch performance and ensuring efficient memory usage. You have log4j2 properties, which is the configuration file for the logging system, log4j. It defines how Elasticsearch logs different types of messages and sets log levels for different components. You can modify this to configure the log output format, log rotation, and other logging related settings. Users is used for configuring user authentication authorization. It allows you to define users' roles and their respective permissions. By managing this file, you can control Elastic to the resources and secure the cluster. We have roles, and roles mapping. So there's roles YAML and then roles mapping. They're used in conjunction with the users file to define roles and their mappings to users and privileges. Provides a way to group users and assign common permissions to them. The YAML file defines the roles and their privileges, while the mapping file maps roles to users. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the individual files and try to mess with, I guess the only file that we're really working with is the main file. And then from there, I don't think I even need to do anything. It just says that you're going to go look at the network section, which is saying by default it's only accessible on the local host. You can set a different address to expose this to on the network, and this is the local host IP address. By default, Elasticsearch listens for HTTP traffic on the first free port it finds, starting at 9200, and you can set a specific port here. So HTTP port 9200 would be the default, and for more information we can look at the module documentation. There are two variables, which is the network host and an HTTP port. Uncomment these two and change the value of the network host to this as we are installing the components. So uncomment the, I guess I have to actually go to those values. So first let's go into our actual Elasticsearch YAML file. And to do that, the command that we have been given is nano. Elasticsearch.yml. That's what it is. There we go. And now we want to go to the network portion. So I'm going to, okay, so I actually literally had to scroll through it. It's unfortunately not something that we can mess with like that. So network host is currently not set to what we want it to be set to, and the port is at 9200. So it said that we want to change the value of the network host to our local IP address, and as we're installing these on the same host, there will be an update to the network host to the local IP address. Once these changes are made, save the document and restart Elasticsearch. So I'm just going to basically make this change right here, which is the big change. We can just leave the port as it is, And there we go. And we're going to write it out. So Control O, Enter, Control X. And then we're going to restart Elasticsearch, which is like so. And that is going to restart. So while that restarts, let's see, what's the default port for this? It's 9200. What is the version of Elasticsearch that we've installed in this task? It's a great question. I need to probably scroll up to find out what we just installed here. This is our version. So it says unpacking 8.8.1, setting up 8.8.1. So it's 8.8.1. And what is the command used to check the status of the Elasticsearch service? And it is the systemctl. There we go. Systemctl status elasticsearch.service. And what's the default value of the network host found in the YAML file? And that I changed it already, so I don't know. Goodness, I shouldn't have changed it. I already changed it. You can also search for this value using your favorite search engine. I thought it was the 127.001, but I think it's not. So I'm just going to use my search engine. All right, there we go. This was the default value that we had originally. So we're just going to paste that here. And there we go. Cool. So that was pretty, straightforward, fairly simple, apart from kind of missing the original piece of instructions that was right at the very top. So as soon as you finish the installation, you got to run these commands first. So you got to reset the daemon, you got to, reload the daemon, you have to enable the service, and then you got to start the service. Once you do that, the rest of these things will actually work very smoothly. So that is now done. Let's move on to the installation of Logstash. All right, so this is pretty much same kind of similar set of instructions that we got to run, and same things, daemon, reload, enable, start, all that stuff. So let's actually just run all these things instead of reading through them. So I'm already inside of our machine here, and now all we got to do is we got to just change our directory to the directory for Logstash, which is right there. So from here, we have the Logstash DEB file, which is going to be depackaged very similar to the last version that we did. So dpkg. And that's going to run. It's probably going to ask me what version of this we installed as well. So I'm just going to copy this real quick and go see if that's actually one of the questions that we got to answer. Yep, it is the question. So there we go. We got that. It says, what's the Logstash version we just installed? So 1.8.8, or maybe it's actually 8.8.1 like that. Okay, there we go. 8.8.1. And then what is the configuration reload interval set by default in the Logstash YAML file? So I'll keep an eye out for that. Until that happens, though, we are going to just wait for this to finish installing, and then we'll come back to it when it's done. Okay, cool, that's done. So let's restart the daemon, or reload the daemon, and then we're gonna enable Logstash service, and then we're gonna yeah, that worked very good. So we're going to now start the Logstash service. Cool, so let's check the status of the Logstash service. Very good, and that's active and running and all good. And so there are certain configuration files as well, just like the other piece that we worked on, which is these configuration files right here. So we have the Logstash YAML, which is the main configuration file that contains global settings and options such as network, logging, pipeline, yada yada. JVM options that connects to the Java virtual machine, and you can do memory allocation, garbage collection, very similar to the other one, log4j2 for logging, and allows you to configure the logging behavior, including log events, pipelines.yaml if you're running multiple pipelines. Conf.d is the directory that's often used to store individual pipeline configuration files. You can create separate configuration files within this directory, each defining a specific processing pipeline, and it'll load and process these in alphabetical order. So it's common to prefix them with numbers to control the processing order. That's good to know. Patterns is a directory that stores custom patterns that can be used in Logstash Grok filter, and Grok is a powerful pattern matching and extraction tool, and you can define your own patterns. And startup options, on some systems you may find this, which contains additional options and arguments that can be passed to Logstash during startup. So we're going to go into the main YAML file and activate certain pieces of it. So let's go into the directory that actually holds all of our files, which is the etc Logstash directory. And here is all these things. So we're gonna do nano logstash.yaml. And there it is. So for this to work, we need to look at the pipeline configuration settings, and we need to modify two things inside of it. So let's first go to the pipeline configuration settings. And here we are. So in this particular case, I need to look at a few things. One of them is the config reload automatic, and that needs to be set to true. So config reload automatic is right here. And first we're going to uncomment it, so to activate it. And then we're going to set this to true. And then the next one is the reload interval, which is at 3 seconds. So we just want to just activate it and leave it at 3 seconds. So that's all good as well. And that was actually the question that we have to answer real quick. What did I just do? X, there we go. So there it is. Let's make sure that's all good. So it says 3S. There we go. And I really just want to go back into this just in case I missed something or I didn't save it properly. That was like the big thing. No, okay, I got it. We saved it and it's all good. Okay, perfect. So that's it. And we have all of our questions answered here as well. I just got to make sure that we run the restart Logstash service command to restart Logstash. So let's do that. And then we'll run to the next section, next task. And finally, we're going to be working with Kibana, which we actually used inside of the investigating with ELK room, which is it's kind of like the visual interface for this whole thing. All the stuff that we just set up so far are the behind the scenes, the BTS stuff. So now we got to make sure that we install the thing that we see when we interact with data and work with data. So as you can imagine, we're just going to go back to our home tools and go in the Kibana folder, and we of course have the Kibana deb file. So we're going to depackage that and make sure that we install Kibana. And there's a question, of course, I think that's going to ask for the version of Kibana that we're installing. So what is the default port? Oh, there's no version question in this one, so we don't have to worry about that one. We just got to make sure that this thing actually installs. And then, so what is the default port on this? How many files are found in here? And the command stop Kibana to stop Kibana. So I guess I'm gonna actually make sure I stop Kibana. And we can even find the default port by just going through some of this information here. So it seems to be 5601. It says the server port runs on 5601 by default. So I can get that question real quick. And now how many files are stored in the etc Kibana directory, and that needs to be done when the installation is complete. And then just got to make sure that we stop the service. So I mean, this one seems to be like pretty straightforward. It doesn't seem to have too many different commands that we got to run, right? So once we finish the installation, then we're going to do the daemon reload as always, enable it. And once it's enabled, we're going to start the Kibana service, and then you're going to check the status of it, and hopefully it'll be all good. And then we go to etc Kibana to find the YAML files, and it seems to be that there is 3 files inside of this thing, or maybe even 2, right? Kibana YAML and Kibana key store. This is a node options file, and that seems to be the only 2 files, right? So it doesn't even I think I even have that answer right here. So how many files are found here? And well, it says 3. So technically, including the options file, there's 3 files. And that's it. I mean, I have the answers. So I just got to make sure that I run or modify these specific pieces of the main YAML file, the main Kibana YAML file, which is the main configuration file. It contains various settings to customize the behavior, such as Elasticsearch URL, server host and port, logging options, security configurations. And then we have the Kibana key store, which stores sensitive configuration settings like the passwords and API keys. And it provides a safer alternative to storing sensitive information in plain text with the YAML file. This is encrypted and can be managed using the bin Kibana key store command line tool. So we're just going to modify this piece right here and then go to the system portion of it and modify whatever they tell us, which is the server port and the server host. And we just got to make sure that we uncomment them and make the changes to server host as shown below, which is 00000. So that's basically it. And then we're going to restart it and then we're going to stop it. So the installation is actually complete here. So in order to run those things, we're going to go to the, actually, no, I'm sorry. So once it's done, I got to make sure I do my reload here. So let's reload our daemon. And then we're going to reload or enable the service. And we have officially started it. So now we're going to check the status of the thing. And there we go. It's active and it's running. So all good. So now we're going to go to our Etsy file to be able to see our little YAML files and our key store files. So specifically, we are interested in our YAML file. And we're going to go to the, where are we going? The Kibana server section. So system Kibana server was actually literally right here. We land on it. This is the server port and then the server host. So what we're going to do is we're just going to uncomment this particular piece right here and leave it at 5601. And then we're going to uncomment this piece and we're going to change it to 0.0.0.0. Boom. Just like that. Done. And exit out of this thing. And then the last thing that they said is we got to make sure that we restart it, but or stop it, excuse me. So there's a few pieces of information that we got to do first before we stop the service. So we're going to do systemctl restart the Kibana service. And once that's been done, which was done very quickly, I get to now go to the browser, and I'll just show you this information real quick. So right here, so it says open the browser, go to this thing, and you'll see the interface. You need to generate an enrollment token using the command that we had at the very beginning, and it'll show a randomly generated token. Enter the token in the space and press enter, and then it'll ask for the Elastic credentials, and these are the same credentials that we got earlier. So first and foremost, if I went to that IP address, I think the first thing that it's going to ask for is the token, and that's what we got to use that command for to generate that token. And then I already saved the password earlier, and we'll see what is done. Yep, so as soon as we land on this page, it asks for the enrollment token from the terminal. So let's go generate our enrollment token real quick. And there is the enrollment token. So we're going to copy that bad boy, go here, paste it, configure. Very cool. And now copy the code from the Kibana server on bin Kibana verification code to retrieve it. So let's see where that is. That is going to be inside of the user, or actually I don't think I even need to go in there. I could just run the command user share Kibana bin Kibana verification verification code. And there it is. So 063065, just like that. Okay, cool. There we go. We're officially done. So I think I can even check this out just to make sure that it's running. I'm going to go and do a login with the username and that password that we got earlier. So let's paste the password in here. Yep, that's the password. And I'll save it for the hell of it. And I mean, it should load. There should be literally no problems with the thing loading. And yep, that is it. So officially we are done with this piece. So because of the fact that it's going to slow down the system. So it says, as we were focused on Logstash in this room, please stop the Kibana service to avoid the VM slowing down. And so since we're focused on Logstash, we're just gonna stop the Kibana service. Voila, there we go. So that's it. We are officially done with the Kibana setup and all that stuff, and we already answered the questions, so that's all good as well. And now we can officially move on to the next piece. Let me make sure I clicked complete on this. It's going to be the Logstash Overview. Okay, so Logstash is a data processing engine, as the name pretty much implies. It stashes all the logs, right? You get different sources of data and you apply a filter to it or normalize it, which makes it easy for the other two pieces to search through them and process them, visualize them. And then it sends it to destination, which is our Kibana. And this is basically it. You have the inputs that come from the machines. It filters it for you, and then it outputs it, and it goes into Kibana ELK stack. Each part is explained here. So you have our inputs, which is in detail. It goes inside of the reference document that's available on the Elastic website, and it shows you all of the various inputs that you can have on this thing. If you go to the specific version of it, it'll show you what you can do. So you have the Azure Event Hub, Beats from the Elastic Beats framework, and CloudWatch, which pulls from Amazon Web Services, and a bunch of other things. So it's like it's literally not limited to just these things. So as you can see, so Azure Event Hub, Beats, CloudWatch, Dead Better, Elastic Agent, Elasticsearch, all these things, right? GitHub. So these are all the different sources that we have for our input plugins. Then you have the specific ones that I think are the most interesting, or not I think, they think is the most interesting, which is a file. So it reads data from a file in real time as a batch, or for ingesting log files or other structured data. Beats is a file beat or metric beat, which is lightweight agents that are used to ship various data types to Logstash. You have a TCP or UDP connection. You can import from syslog. You can do HTTP web files or web traffic. JMX, which is for Java management extensions. The SNMP, Simple Network Mapper protocol, and their notifications sent by network services or network devices, excuse me. RabbitMQ, I've never heard of this. It's a message broker. It enables to receive data from RabbitMQ, which is a message broker. And of course, Amazon S3, the simple bucket thingy, super simple bucket or something like that. Super simple storage, I think that's what that is. And then you have the filtering process. So when you go through filtering the plugins, you can filter by a variety of different things. So you can do extract specific fields, convert data formats, apply regular expressions, add timestamps, enrich data. Logstash supports many filter plugins. So you have input plugins, you have output plugins, filter plugins, and these are the filters that we can create. And then these are the most relevant, or the ones that they thought were the most important. Grok parses unstructured data using custom patterns. Mutate performs various mutations on event fields, such as renaming, removing, converting. The date, so date and timestamps. JSON, that one you should be familiar with, but it's basically like one of the most, it's like a universal structured data language. CSV, comma separated values, GeoIP, so it gives you the geographical information of the IP address. User agent, which is Google Chrome or Microsoft or Microsoft Edge, Mozilla Firefox. Drops events that match specific conditions, used for filtering out unwanted events. So it's kind of like going into an intrusion protection and responding and handling things, auto-remediating. Translate values in event fields based on defined mappings. And of course, DNS, domain name system lookups on events. And then you have output. So the output plugins that we already kind of saw. You have Elasticsearch, so it sends it to Elasticsearch, which is probably what we're going to be doing. It allows you to index and store data for further analysis. It can send it into a file for you. STD out is the standard output, useful for debugging or quick data inspection. Kafka produces messages to Apache Kafka message broker, enables Logstash to send data to Kafka. Redis or Redis pushes events to the data structure server, useful for publishing data or other systems. You have the Amazon S3 and then Graphite, which is the server, StatsD to the server for aggregation monitoring. They're commonly used in conjunction in Graphite or other monitoring. And then you have Logs.io, which ships to Logs.io cloud-based management and analytics platforms, suitable for centralized logs, and InfluxDB, which is a time series database. So it's basically exporting to either files or various databases, data processing. So which plugin is used to perform mutation of the device? And it's literally mutate. That was the name of it, right? Mutate. Which plugin can be used to drop events based on certain conditions, and that'll be drop. Which plugin parses unstructured data using custom patterns? And I think, is that Beat? No, it's not Beat. Okay, let me see what that was. Oh, Grok. All right, cool. We got our Logstash overview. So let's look at some configuration writing. All right, so writing configurations. While we set up Logstash earlier, we made changes to the config file at the logstash.yaml file. And one of the things that we turned on, we just uncommented the amount of time that it takes to monitor the changes that are being made, and that was 3 seconds. So it would go every 3 seconds. And that's one of the configurations that we did. The rest of the configuration files are located in this path, and we're going to go through the process of writing a simple configuration file. So for example, using a TCP input, and then using a filter for JSON, or I think it's so the input stream is JSON, so we're going to explore the JSON plugin documentation and see what fields are required. And then the filter is going to be etc. And then the output, we're going to go and pick from one of the resources as well, and choose the ideal output for that situation, so that this is what the configuration file finally is going to look like. You have the input, then you have the filter, and then you have the output, and that's the basic configuration file. So what you do, you're going to save it, add any name, and then make sure that it's inside of the configuration file directory. And then in the next task, we're actually going to be using configurations or creating configurations using different plugins. So just to give you a reminder of where this thing is located, is right here. And it's inside of the elastic.co website, guide, Logstash, current plugins, input. And so this is the input plugins list that we have right here. And then this is TCP under the input plugins. So you see right here, so let me zoom in properly. We have the input plugins, and then now we're looking at, on this particular page, the TCP input. And then from the input plugins, the very next thing that you would have would be the, where are they? The filter, and I'm just super zoomed in so I can't see where I am. So input plugin is right here, then you have output, and then you have filter. So these three categories are the ones that we're going to be specifically looking at, but there's a lot of different plugins and configuration options that are available for Logstash and Kibana, etc. So the main three that we're going to be working with is input, output, and filter. And they already gave us the ones that we're going to be using here. So it's input is going to be TCP, and it's the port 5456 that's going to come in as our input. the filter is that we're going to be using a JSON filter, and the source itself is going to be the message that's going to come in from all of our traffic, from our input traffic, and then the output is going to go into Elasticsearch, and this is going to be our host which is the local host at the port of 9200, which is the basic default port, and then the index is going to be your index name. So I guess technically name it any kind of index, and then we'll just use it as such. And this is what it's going to look like. This is what the final piece is going to look like. I'm going to do my very best to use Nano for this, but I wonder if all of these indentations and everything are going to work. I'm just going to copy and paste these just to make sure that in case I need indentations for whatever reason, I'm just going to copy and paste them to just make sure that it runs smoothly. So first thing that we got to do is we got to go to this particular path right here, which is where all of the configuration files are located. All right, cool. And then if I run ls, there's nothing in here. So if I do ls-la, there's literally nothing inside of that directory. So we're just going to create one, and I can name it whatever I want. So I'm just going to we'll do nano, and then we'll call it test config like this. And then the extension is going to have to be a .conf extension. So it'll be testconfig.conf like that. And here we are. So we're just going to copy this whole piece right here. And I'm literally just going to leave all of this information exactly as it is, just to see how it works. Okay, so there are spaces and indentations that get imported into this thing. And I wonder how many spaces these types of things are right here, right? So this is 1, 2, and then so 2 spaces here, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then so 4 spaces. I don't know if that's exactly how it's supposed to be, if those things actually make a difference or not. But for the case of this particular thing, we're just gonna save it, and we're gonna exit out of that just to make sure that we have it exactly as it is over here. Just to make sure, just in case that you have to have those things, that it's going to work properly. So if I run lsla again, now we have our test configuration file, which is here, which is all good. So some of the questions here that I answered in advance is index a mandatory option in the Elasticsearch plugin? So you can find that again on this particular case, right? So if we go here, under inputs, you can look at it under output or filter, and I don't think it actually says, yeah, so it just says in the Elasticsearch plugin is index mandatory. And if we go up here, it actually tells us inside of this file right here that there is no field that is mandatory, but still we want to use the fields like host and index to show the host address and the index where we want the data to be indexed. So there are no fields that are actually mandatory. This is specifically under the output. So there are some other ones that I believe they actually have requirements. So for example, if you're using for the filter, if you're using JSON as your format, and you go on the list of the configurations and you look at JSON filter, you'll see that there are certain things that are required. So for example, source for JSON is required, and the input type has to be a string value. So in our case, source was the message, right? The message field. And then if we go to the input TCP, you'll see that under TCP input, there's another requirement, which is the port number. So you have to have a port number for your TCP input. The rest of the things aren't necessarily required. And I've checked this already, so I'll just kind of show you what this looks like. But under TCP, there aren't very many things that are actual requirements. So if we just go here, and this is our list right here, so let's zoom in a little bit. We'll see under required on the right here, there's one that has a yes, and then there's literally nothing else that has a yes. So the only thing that was required for TCP as our input is going to be the port number. So depending on which input form you're using, or depending on which filter you're using, different things are going to be the required fields. But for output specifically, especially since we're going to be using the one that we're outputting to Elasticsearch that we configured. There's nothing that is required here. It's just good practice to make sure that you have your host and you also have an index name so that it makes it easier for you to search later on when you actually use Kibana to do your log search and parsing and things like that. So index is not mandatory. Look at the file look at the file input plugin documentation, which field is required in the configuration. So file input plugin. So if we go to input, which is this category that we're in right here, and then we go and find file, and under the file input right here, you'll see that there is a different set of fields that exist, and then under the fields there is one thing that is required, which is the path. So it's the path of the file that you need, that is absolutely required for that, which makes sense because you want to know which file that you're going to be reading from. And then the filter documentation for CSV, what is the third field option that's mentioned? So we go back here, and then we now just go to the filter plugins, and then we choose CSV, and then the third option is columns right here. So very easy to answer these questions. And then which output plugin is used in the above example, and our output plugin is Elasticsearch in this particular example. So very, very easy to do, and it was really easy for us to create our configuration file as well. So that is what it would look like, and we already made it. This is what it's going to look like here. We already made it. It's saved inside of our configuration directory, and now we can move on to the next one, which is the Logstash input configurations. All right, so these are the input plugins and the usages for Logstash specifically. So we have the file input plugin, and as we kind of already saw, the input for file requires that you actually have the path. So this would be the path to the file. Start position is not mandatory, but it's good practice to have it. So you want this to start at the beginning, and then the since DB path, which would be dev null. So this sets the path to since DB file, which keeps track of the current position of the file read, and that's what that does. So very simple. I mean, and all of these things have their own explanations when you go to the for example, let's go back into here. We'll click on input, and then we'll click on file, and then if we go back down here and we choose any of these things, if we click on it, it'll actually show us what that means, right? So if I went to since DB clean after since DB path, which is the one that was right here, and then you go right here and it gives you the explanation. So the value type is a string. There's no default value for this. Path of the since DB database file keeps track of the current position of the monitored log files that will be written to the disk. The default will write this to path.data, whatever. This is kind of pre-filled based on your situation, but it's going to be inside of the plugins, inputs, and files. It must be a file path and not a directory path. So that's since DB. So the point is, no matter which one, what option it is that you're trying to figure out, you can just click on it and it'll give you the explanation for that, very similar to what we just saw right here. So that was the file input plugin. Then we have the Beats input plugin, and it receives data from Beats, which is a lightweight shippers that sends data to Logstash. So it's a lightweight data forwarder, essentially. And the only thing that's required for this is the port. So it specifies the port number that we should listen to for Beats connections, and then you just specify the port number. The TCP input plugin listens for data on a specified TCP port, and you give it to it. And then the codec is very interesting here. It's not required, again, as we saw earlier, but it defines the codec that's going to be used for decoding the incoming data. So in this particular case, the data is expected to be in JSON format. So we say that we want the codec to be in JSON format. Then you have the UDP input plugin. So same thing, you have port, and then the codec is plain, which in this particular case, it would be plain text, right? So plain implies that it's going to be in plain text. And then we have the HTTP input plugin, which brings HTTP web data, and that's coming in from port 5055, and that's it. That's like, there's no other options here. You can obviously choose other options for it, but this is the only thing that's been specified, and I would imagine that that's the only thing that is mandatory in this case. So There's a note here that says each input plugin provides specific configuration options tailored to its functionality and requirements. The examples above demonstrate configuring the files by specifying the necessary settings such as file paths, ports, and codecs. You can further customize these configurations based on your specific use case and the data sources you are working with. The Logstash documentation provides comprehensive information on each input plugin and its available configuration options. So, if we want to read a constant stream from a TCP port 5678, which input plugin will be used? So you want a constant stream from a TCP port 5678. I can't imagine that this is that simple of an answer. It is. I thought that it was maybe like something else that I was supposed to find over here, and I kind of searched through it for a while, and I was like, maybe the answer is like really obvious and it's inside of the question itself. So it's TCP. So if you want a constant stream from a TCP port, you want the TCP plugin. So very good. According to the Logstash documentation, the codec plugins are used to change the data representation. Which codec plugin is used for the CSV based data representation? And I'm going to take another guess. CSV. Okay, very easy. Straightforward, super easy. So, all right, there we go. Logstash input configuration. So now let's look at Logstash filter configurations. All right, filter configurations change the input that's coming into your desired output. Basically, that's what it does for you. In this particular case, we have the mutate filter. And what it does is that you add a field and it takes the new field and it changes it to the new value. So the explanation is this configuration utilizes the mutate filter to add a new field called new field with the value of new value to each event. The mutate filter provides various operations for modifying fields. So mutate can change something into lowercase. So you want whatever the value of field name is, which is in this case, or they didn't have it up here, I'm sorry. So whatever the value of the field name is, you just want it to be all lowercase. So it converts the value of this to lowercase. Very simple. The filter grok, in this particular case, extracts data using the grok filter, and it matches the message, and then this is a pattern that is, I think it's a regex pattern. No, it's not a regex pattern. So it uses the grok filter to extract data from the message field based on a predefined pattern, and then the extracted data will be stored in a new field called field name. So you want the message field, and it's going to take the pattern right here, the predefined pattern, and then it's going to extract that into a new field called the field name. Prune utilizes the prune filter to remove empty fields from the event, except for those specified in the whitelist names parameter. Only fields 1 and 2 will be retained in the event in this particular case. So it's going to take all the empty fields out except these two fields where we have them already whitelisted. And then you have translate, for example. So it utilizes translate to replace the value of country, in this case the field is country, with its corresponding value from the dictionary. So the dictionary is going to be US is United States, CA is going to be Canada. That's what it does for us. For example, if the country is US, it's going to be replaced with United States. If it's Canada, it's going to be replaced with Canada. Very simple. Then we have a if-else. This is a Python type of a language. So if-else statements are actually, I mean, it's not just in Python. It's in pretty much every language. I just love referencing Python whenever I get a chance. So in this case, so if status equals error, so meaning when you have a double equal sign, it means that it has to actually equal this. So if the status equals error, or maybe the word error is inside the status, then you want to drop the connection or drop the stream. Otherwise, perform additional transmissions or filters. This is literally, it's very similar to Python. The only difference is that these squiggly brackets aren't required when you're writing Python. We work with colons and semicolons and things like that. So, but it is very, very similar to Python syntax. So the if-else statement checks the value of the status field. If the value is error, the event is dropped using the drop filter. Otherwise, if the condition is not met, the event proceeds for further transformation or filters. So you can have this, right? And it says, if there's error in here, drop the connection. Otherwise, you can then add one of these things. For example, translate the field into yada, 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 or prune into this. So you can kind of combine multiple filters by adding this if statement at the very beginning to just check to see if there's an error status inside of your connection. And if there is, you drop it. If not, you continue filtering. Then we have parsing the key value pairs using the KV filter. So KV filter for key value, field split, and value split equals. So it parses the key value pairs. The field split parameter specifies the delimiter between key value pairs, which is AND in this case, which delimiter basically means the separator. And the value split parameter specifies the delimiter between the keys and the values, which is equals in this case. So the field split specifies the delimiter between key value pairs, and then the value split specifies the delimiter between the key and the value, right? So let's say you have 4 key values. This will split it for you into 4 different key value pairs, and then this one will actually take the key value and the value and it'll split it for you. Performing conditional field renaming using the rename filter, so mutate and then rename it. The old field is going to be the new field. Add field is going to be another field, which is going to be the value. So it's going to rename the field old field to the new field. Additionally, it adds a new field called another field with the value. The rename filter shows for additional. A lot of these are examples. So there's nothing going to be called old field. But if you find a field that you want to rename, for example, user. Let's say you want to change user to username. Then you would do it like that, and then you can add a new field to it as well. So this is just a sampling of all the different filters that you can use inside of Logstash. Now our question here is, which filter plugin is used to remove empty fields from the events? Prune is that. Which filter plugin is used to rename, replace, and modify event fields? And it would be rename right here. So we already have that, so let's just try that. And okay, that's not it. Maybe it's mutate actually. Yeah, mutate is it. And so add a plugin name to rename field source IP to source IP in the field fixed third line. So what are we doing here? It says add plugin name to rename the field source IP to source IP and the fixed third line. Okay, so let's try this. We're going to do rename, and it's going to be equal sign forward like that, and then it's going to be this field, and then so source IP is going to equal to source IP like that. Let's see if that works. Oh, cool. That did work. Okay, so the way that I found it is I just went to the list of our plugins here under mutate right here, and then I went to the overall list, which is right here, and then there's something called rename right there, and I clicked on rename and it brought me down here, and then this is the example, right? So filter, mutate, so rename like that, and then old name, new name, basically just like that. Very, very simple and easy to do. So we are now done with filter configurations. So obviously the next thing that we're going to move to is output plugins. So let's look at that. All right, as the name implies, output is the portion of the configuration file where you define the destination for the events that are being processed. So you have an input, the data comes in, you have a filter to transform the data however you want to transform it, and then you finally declare where you want the data to go, right? So in our particular case, Elasticsearch is kind of a big deal that we're going to be using because it's a part of the whole Elasticstack suite of software. And Elasticsearch allows us to search through the data that we just took in and then view it for Kibana, for example. So when we do output to Elasticsearch, we have the host that we define, which is our local host on the the default port, and then the name of the index that we're going to create. So it uses Elasticsearch output to send the events to Elasticsearch cluster. The host parameter defines the server's address and defines the index name where the data will be stored. Writing data to a file using the file output plugin. So you just give it the file output that you want to write the data to. Very, very simple. RabbitMQ is another output plugin. So you can just say localhost, exchange is going to be my exchange, and the routing key. And these are specific to the RabbitMQ service. So to send events to the RabbitMQ server, the host parameter specifies the server's address, while the exchange and routing key define the exchange and routing key for message routing within RabbitMQ. So these are specific to RabbitMQ. Then we have another Logstash instance that you can forward it to. So you can output it to Logstash again, which is the destination host on whatever the port is that you want. Then you can do to a database using JDBC output plugin. So the connection string is going to be JDBC, MySQL, and then the local host with the port, and then the my database / at the end. Then you have insert into my table field this, field 2 with whatever the values are going to be. And these are wildcard characters that just take in whatever the values are from the fields that you created previously. And insert into is a SQL type of query, SQL type of language. So you want to insert the data into whatever the name of the table is, and these are the fields that you want to insert, and then all the values from those fields are just going to be taken in. And the parameters are field 1 and field 2. So it uses this to insert events into MySQL database. The connection string specifies the database connection details, and the statement parameter defines the SQL insert statement. The parameter provides values for the placeholders in the statement. And then sending it to a TCP server using the TCP output. So destination host, port number, sending data to message broker using Kafka. So this is another service that's a third party, like an external service. So the Bootstrap server name, the Kafka host at 9092, and at the topic ID. Apache Kafka is the name of the service. The Bootstrap server parameter specifies the Kafka server's address, and the topic ID parameter defines the topic to which the events will be sent. So those things I would imagine need to be established in advance before you can forward it to that, because you would need to have the topic's name as well as the server name. And then we have a WebSocket endpoint. So using the WebSocket service to send it to the actual WebSocket. The URL parameter specifies the WebSocket server's URL and the specified endpoint, which is going to be my endpoint. And then we have syslog. So syslog is a Windows service, and syslog server is going to be the name, port number, and then the protocol is going to be UDP. The host parameter specifies the syslog server's address. Port is defined the port where the events will be sent, and the protocol defines the transport protocol. In this case, is going to be UDP. And last but not least, right? Yeah, that's the last one. We have the std out standard output plugin, and it uses this std out plugin to print events to the console. It's primarily used for debugging purposes to visually inspect the processed events and verify that Logstash's pipeline transformations. These are examples, and they demonstrate a variety of output plugins available in Logstash, each serving a specific purpose to send data to different destinations. We can choose the appropriate plugin based on our requirements and desired data flow. Can we use multiple output plugins at the same time in order to send data to multiple destinations? I'm going to say yeah, because I can't imagine why not. Which Logstash output plugin is used to print events to the console? And that would be std out. And update the following configuration to send the event to the syslog server. So we have this information right here. And what is, I mean, what do I need to put right here? Okay. What it was looking for was basically the plugin name itself, and then the required features of it. So we have syslog, the host, and the port, which are the required pieces of syslog. So, we come here to syslog inside of our output, and then we go to our fields to see what's required. So in this case, we have host that's required, and then we go down here, and then we have port that's required. And that's it. That's what that was. It was kind of confusing the way that they asked the question, but figured it out. And finally, here we go. Logstash running configurations. All right, if you remember from a few minutes ago, we have the basic outline of how to create a configuration file for Logstash, which is you need to have an input, you need to have a filter, and then you have an output. And so you have the input, open squiggly, then you have the filter, open squiggly, and then close squiggly. So this is all the filter. Then you have another one, output, open squiggly, close squiggly. And this is really the flow, right? So everything's inside of the Logstash configuration directory, and std in, std out tends to be like the basic thing, right? So you have std in, which is just the input that goes in standard, and an output is going to be into the terminal itself, right? The display that you're looking at. So it provides various inputs, which can be going from different sources. In the first example, we're going to look at the terminal doing std plugin and send the output back to the terminal using the std out plugin. And that's what this would look like, input, yada, yada, yada. And we can skip that because we're not using any filters in this example. Let's try this out using the following command. So this is the actual command, logstash, and then we're going to execute this, and then we're going to get some kind of a result. So I am going to try that out. I'm going to try to see how this actually looks in our particular terminal that we got. So let's clear the screen and let's see what we got. Okay, it did not work no matter what I did. So I tried multiple ways. I went inside of the path the way that they did over here. So they went inside of the path, and then they executed the ./bin logstash. So I did that exactly, and it gave me this thing where it says using bundled JDK, and it didn't really work. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to do the full path the way that they did it in our example command up here. And I did that as well, and it still gave me the same thing using bundled JDK, and it didn't output any of the results for me. So I wonder if that is actually the case. So what we can also do is we can just do systemctl and see if the Logstash service is actually available, right? So logstash.service, let me see what the status of this is. And it says it's running, it's active, and it's all good. So it's working, I know that. I just don't know why this particular thing is not working on our screen. So if you run this and it actually gives you a different result or a different output, I would love to hear from you. So let me know. All right, let's move on to the next one. Reading authentication logs. So in this particular case, our input file is going to be our authentication log, and then the start position is the beginning, and the DB path is going to be dev null, and we're going to filter using an if statement, which says if the message equals this whole thing right here. So this is actually a regex pattern, a regular expression pattern, and /w means alphanumeric character, 3 characters long, and then this is a space, so however many number of spaces, because this is going to be, this entire thing is one full section. So 3 characters long with a space, and then how the plus means it could be infinite numbers, right? Or infinite characters, infinite variations of this. And then you have /d, which is for digits, and either 1 digit long or 2 digits long, again, space and a plus sign, and then you /d, which is 2 digits long, and then you have the colon, which is going to be a literal colon inside of it, /d 2 digits long, and another colon /d 2 digits long. And this is a time regex pattern, as you can see right here. So you have the month, the day, and then the hour, minute, and second, which is exactly what we're trying to do. So the month is going to be 3 characters long, and they're going to be alphanumeric. So January, February, March would be Jan, Feb, MAR, right? MAR. And then separated by a space, and then you have the actual date itself, which is 1 or 2 digits long. In this particular case, if it's a day is going to be either single digits or double digits. That's basically how long the days of the month are. And then you have another one, which is the digits, which is going to be the month, or excuse me, the hours. And then you have the minutes, and then you have the seconds. And what it's going to be doing is it's going to take this, and then it's going to take this as well, which is both instances of the same thing essentially. So you have single day or double day, that's it. And then the target is that you're going to send that information to the timestamp variable, the timestamp parameter. So the filter is, from this log, if you find anything that matches this pattern, I want you to send it to the date, which is going to be the timestamp. And then the output is going to go into our Logstash output log. So save this configuration file to Logstash configuration and run the following command to actually run it. So we're going to go and create our Logstash configuration, which is where inside of this directory, etc logstash-conf.d, and then we're going to create this specific Logstash configuration file, and then we're going to run it and test it and see what happens. So let's do that. This one sounds fun. This one looks like a good one. And let me first go into that directory. Cool. And we already created our test configuration file that's there. So we are definitely in the right directory. And now we want to create a new one, which is called logstash.configuration. And then I'm just going to copy this whole thing because that's too much typing. Copy that, paste that, write that out, X that out, and now I should have two. Very good. Logstash configuration and test config. All right, so now we're going to run the following command from the location. So the location that we're actually in, we're going to run this user share bin logstash, and then so from this location, excuse me, I'm going to run this command. So let's go into that actual location. Okay, so this is incorrect, just for your information. This directory does not exist. I had to manually traverse and try to find it. So first and foremost, when you get this far, so when you get to user share, this part is okay, but there is no such thing as bin that's inside of this directory, but there is something called Logstash that is inside of this directory. So first we go into Logstash, and then when you're inside Logstash, there's a bin, and then you can go and end up at user share Logstash bin. So this is incorrect, and the lab creator did not do the right syntax for us. So now that we're actually inside of the right directory, now we're going to run this command, which is logstash f and then logstash configuration file. So here we go. Okay, so here's another piece that again was not provided to us here. When I tried to run it exactly how they provided it, logstash f logstash configuration file, it said there is no command such as that. So I ran ls command, and there is something in here that's an executable for us, but we need to use the // so that we can actually run it, and then f logstash configuration file. It is giving me that same message as before when we tried to output onto the screen, but this one actually worked. So okay, so this one seems to be that we actually had some kind of an output. So I wonder if I can go find that output file, which is this thing right here, and check that out. So so that one did end up technically working for us. The command I'm sure that they're looking for is this version of the command. So I'm just going to do this copy and then just paste it over here, and I think that's what they want. But for your information, you need to do a dot and a / before you do logstash. So just keep that in mind. And now the second question is, what will the input, filter, and output plugins in the below mentioned configuration if we want to get the comma separated values from the command line and apply the filter and output back to the terminal to test the results? So we want the input, the filter, and the output. And so the input is going to be coming in from the command line. So it's going to be coming in from the command line. You want to apply the filter and output back to the terminal. So it's going to be std in, csv, and std out. Those are our terminal. So terminal would be std in, it comes in, csv is the filter, and std out is going to be back out onto the screen. And CSV stands for comma separated value, just in case you didn't know. So that's why I kind of knew that from the top of my head. So now I want to go and check this thing right here. I want to see if this actually exists now, because when this whole thing ran for us, I'm really curious to see if this exists. So let's go to root home desktop. There is no such file or directory. So let's go here, cd here, and we have this. Let's do user, and we do not have, so let me go all the way up right there, and I do that, and we have snap. So let's do that, and Amazon agent. Yeah, that's definitely not it. So that is not it. So let's go home, and we have tools and Ubuntu. So let me see. So root home desktop. So let's go to Ubuntu. There's nothing here. So there is no desktop here. So I think this is actually wrong, because again, in our particular case, there is no root home and anything like that. So if I go to the actual home, which is our / right here, if we go here and if we do an ls command, there is nothing here. Oh no, there is a root. So let's go to root then and do an ls, and there is snap. So I mean, snap is not our user though. There's Amazon SSM agent and there's LXD. So in here there is none of that. So if I go to Amazon, and there is none of that. So that does not work for us, and that's probably why that specific configuration file that we created seemed to give us error messages, because it seems like it didn't properly run this thing and didn't actually work. So maybe what I can do is I can actually go ahead and change the output file path. And let me see if that log file even exists, because that would be crappy if it didn't, right? This entire time we're just doing whatever. So do we have an authentication log even? Okay, cool. Yeah, we do have an authentication log. So that's fine. So we're going to just go back, and we're going to go to where our configuration files are. And I'm going to modify our configuration file to make sure that we actually have our output path. And let's see if it'll work. All right, here we go. Here's the file, and let's go here, and I'm gonna change this path to something else. So that's it. So I remember that there was a snap inside of the root, and then I think I could probably do that. So I'm gonna just double check this real quick. Yeah, so there is a snap file. So that's what this will be, and hopefully it'll just be on this desktop right here. So let's make sure that it actually is, right? So there we go. So from here, we're just gonna go and run that command one more time, just to see if it'll actually give us an output file, because I want this to work. I don't want it to just, oh, it's not bin logstash. I gotta remember that. Logstash bin and then logstash. There we go. Okay, there we go. So I ran it, and here we go. Logstash f logstash da da da. Let's give it a second for it to finish, and hopefully it'll create an output file for us in the proper directory, and it would be really, really nice if it did. All right, so unfortunately, we didn't get the logout file we wanted. There are actually new files that were created inside of the snap directory, so it's definitely more than what we had before. But what it seems like is that we didn't get the specific output file that we wanted. And the reason for that, as I read through the error messages that we got here, is number one, the Logstash YAML file, which is supposed to technically be inside of the home configuration or inside of the etc Logstash directory, was non-existent. So if we go to the cd etc Logstash, and I mean, it's literally right there. So I don't exactly know why that specific thing didn't read it for us. But it is something that you could also do using the path settings. Continuing using the defaults is what it did. So we could have technically done that. Could not file log4j configuration at path user share logstash configuration log4j to properties using default configuration. And then running Logstash as a super user is not recommended and won't be allowed in the future. Set allow super user to false to avoid startup errors. All of these things would be really, really nice if it was shown in our instructions, but it wasn't. All right, so here's another sample configuration file for us that we can take to read the file at the web attacks CSV file. Then we can filter it using a CSV filter with the comma being the separator, and then these are the columns that we want to create. You can add additional filters if you want to. For example, if the attack type equals SQL injection or brute force, do something for that, for the attack type, for example. And then the output is going to end up being on the desktop, updated web attacks.csv. Now, I have a feeling that once I run this, I'm going to get a similar error that I did when we ran the previous one, and it's going to say, it couldn't find the Logstash YAML file and all the extra jargon that we see right here. So I'm going to run it anyway. I'm going to create this thing and I'm going to run it, and maybe for whatever reason it'll actually work for us, and we'll see what we can find. So first and foremost, the thing that we want to do is we want to find our web attacks CSV file. So let's see if we can find that thing first. All right, so there is no desktop web attacks CSV inside of this, so I'm going to run a find command to see if I can actually find this, because it seems to be that we're having like a situation with just these paths being incorrect most of the time. So the command is this: you do find, and you want to do find everything recursively inside of root and all the other directories inside of it. So that's what this thing represents. That's what the / right here represents, is that it's going to look inside all the directories inside of the overall root directory. And we're searching by the name, which is webattacks.csv. And then toDev null essentially just doesn't show anything that's an error message. It only shows you the potential paths that thing exists for. So let's see if we can find the webattacks.csv file and where it's actually located. Okay, so maybe that's what the issue is. There is no such file as webattacks.csv that we can access, and that seems to be the case. So one of the things that I'm going to do, maybe this was because one of the errors that I just read was that you can't run this as a sudo user, as a root user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of the root user, and I'm going to run all of the previous commands that we had right here as just a regular user. So the very, very last one that we had using the Logstash configuration file, I'm just going to rerun that as a non-root user, and maybe we'll actually get some kind of a result. So let's try that out. Okay, so here we go. We changed back to our analyst user, and we're inside the user shared Logstash bin, and I ran the command with the Logstash configuration file. Still gave me the same type of response right here, but it is running. So let's see if it's going to be able to find the configuration file since we didn't run it as a sudo user, and let's see what we get. All right, so I got a similar error message as the other one. I copied this whole thing because it's a little bit crazy for me to read, and I went into Gemini and I asked it to read the whole thing for me and give me exactly what the problems are. And so the first thing is that our Logstash YAML file doesn't exist inside of this thing, which it actually does. So this is kind of one of the big issues that I'm having, is that we actually do have the Logstash YAML file that exists here. So I'm kind of upset with this whole with this whole possible thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this particular piece right here because it doesn't have this either. So the user shared Logstash data must be a writable directory. I'm going to change the permissions on this to actually make it writable, and hopefully that'll actually give us some kind of different result, and we'll see what that does in this case. So we need to go to this particular path where user shared Logstash not configuration, I'm sorry, it's the data location. So it's user share Logstash data, right? Right, so user share Logstash data is where we want to go. So let's go and find that real quick. All right, there we go. This is our data directory right here, and it is right. So there's an execute and read permission for the group, and there's only an execute permission for the user. So what we're going to do is we're going to just change the permissions of that, and we're going to give it write permissions, and we're going to make sure that we give it write permissions as a user. I need to confirm that real quick. Okay, yeah, so we need to give it plus u plus w, so user gets writing permissions. So that is what I need to make sure I have here. So let's make sure we actually have that. So u plus w, and then this is going to be the data file, and I'm going to take an extra step here and make sure that it's sudo, and then we're going to type in the password. And so if I run lsla one more time, we should be able to see that it does not have write permissions to data. So let's try just a regular write permission to data. Yeah, still nothing. So that is a little bit of a challenge here. So maybe I need to change to the su user one more time, which is root, and then let's go chmod plus u plus w, and it's going to be data. Nope, still nothing. So it still didn't change my write permissions. So these are a few of the issues that we had with our particular run case, because it said that we don't have the etc logstash for the system-wide configuration file, which we do. So I'm going to show you all of this so that just so you can see that it exists, because at the very least I want you to see what's happening in case that there is you run across the same issue, right? So if we go inside of the etc logstash directory, we see that we have our Logstash YAML file right here. And if I go into the Logstash YAML file, we'll see that we actually have our settings in YAML. Everything is actually done in YAML. And there were a few items that we had to make sure that we commented or uncommented, which in this case was the lib Logstash path. I think that was already uncommented, and there may have been some other things that I had to uncomment for this because I remember doing it. Yeah, so configuration reload automatic is set to true. Configuration reload interval is set to 3 seconds. So this is already all good. There's nothing else that I can think of that would be incorrect in this possible case. So maybe there's the initial space, which I don't think is the problem, honestly. But let's just save the issue right here, and so that's all good as well. And so that's been done. And then the other piece is that our data directory right here doesn't have the write permissions to it, and you just saw me go through all the different steps to try to give it a write permission. So that was the issue on that side. So there's a piece that this says that this doesn't have write permissions, and we tried to fix it and it wasn't actually going to fix it, or it didn't fix it. And then there's the piece that it says it doesn't have the YAML file, which it does. It actually does have the YAML file, and it's inside of the etc logstash directory as it's supposed to be. etc logstash, that's where it's supposed to be for the system-wide configuration. So this is the main two errors that we got. And then there's the very last piece right there that it said, there's another piece right here. It says log4j2 properties file was not found. It's not critical for basic operation, as the message indicates it will use the default configuration, which logs to the console itself. So all of these considered, these are the three main errors that entire block of text gave us. And I tried to fix it, but unfortunately it didn't work. So that's where I kind of came up short in this particular case. So I did do the troubleshooting, and unfortunately, I'm terribly sorry. I feel like I failed you. So I hope you can forgive me for this particular piece, but that's basically where I came up short. However, that being said, and that taken out of that placed out of the way, these are generally what we discovered today. So we went to the install and configuration of all the different ELK components, including Logstash and the search and Elasticsearch, as well as Kibana. We had different input, filter, and output plugins that were available that we found on the documentation, which was available on the Elastic website, and some basic configuration files, as well as just some examples of some of the more complex ones. For example, this is a little bit more of a complex configuration file. In your particular case, I would assume that it would be a little bit different, because your installation should be all good and your paths should be all good. You should, for example, have the webattacks.csv file, which I couldn't even find. So these were some of the things that are missing. So it's like, to be able to run this, I would actually need to have this original file, which didn't even exist on the machine that I'm on, unless I did something wrong. So if you are going to go through this exercise yourself and you do get a different result than I do because you tried something different, please drop it in the comment section. There's one particular follower that we have in our community. His name is David. He really does go very, he goes the extra mile when he runs these labs, and he runs them multiple times, and I get a lot of comments from him. So, shout out to David. David, if you actually figure this out, and if you are able to get a different result, please drop it in the comments, because I want to know what I did wrong and what the problem was. But apart from that, that's it for our Logstash room and our Logstash exercises. Hopefully you learned something from it. Alright, so if you found any value from this video, or if you've ever found any value from our channel, I do encourage you to like, subscribe, turn on notification bell, and drop a comment. At 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to reveal my face. And when we get to 100,000 subscribers, I'm actually going to introduce my real identity. But I feel like somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000, our community is going to find my real identity through my face. So I'm prepared for that. I think it's going to be a fun exercise, and it's going to be a really cool game that we're going to end up playing, and it should be fun. It should be an exciting journey to be able to kind of get to know each other even better. So all of that is going to happen on this journey that we're on, and I would love to have you as a part of it. And of course, I really do want to see you in the comment section, because this is a really it's a very live and active comment section, as you can see right here. I really love the fact that this turned into the type of community that it turned into, and I would love to see you in the comment section as well. And see, look, I told you, there's a guy named David who is just super active. He comments on everything. He actually goes through all the rooms, and he implements all of the exercises, and I really love seeing people getting value from these videos and actually using them as tutorials for themselves. So I would love to have you as a part of the community. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notification bell, and drop a comment, ask your question. If you want to say hi, drop a compliment, whatever it is, would love to hear from you. It's your boy Hank Hackers, and at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. Love, peace, and chicken grease. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you, and I will see you in the next room later.